see what I can get here. This dream like a European movie. I'm involved in a kind of get together. I'm relatively young compared to everybody there. I'm maybe 5 to 10 years younger than I am now, so I'm not a kid. But they're late 50s, probably 50s, maybe even 60s. And there's this kind of gathering of people. Most of them are repeats. And there's a kind of ritual to it. So first is getting there, and it's just this kind of like suburban house, but it's a really big house. And all I remember about getting there was that it was long and like complicated, but I got there. Just like the directions were hard, or like it was in New Jersey and I was on Long Island, so it was just kind of like a long way. And a long way for like an evening to hang out.
For several years in another life, a friend and I went to every Mets Saturday home game. There was an Italian deli over there in Queens by Shea Stadium where we'd pick up sandwiches to eat at the game. The sandwiches were fantastic, just what you're imagining. Great bread, nice cold cuts, whatever fixings you wanted. I liked the roasted red peppers, and all put together by an old Italian guy. One day, along with the sandwiches, we get some pickles from the pickle barrel. We go to the game, eat the sandwiches, eat the pickles. The Mets lose. The pickles are great. Next time we go to the Italian deli, we buy the sandwiches, buy the pickles. We go to the game, eat the sandwiches, eat the pickles. The Mets lose. I can't overstate how good these pickles were. Nice and thick, crisp, not overpowering with the brine, the right color. The Mets lost every time we ate them, which was twice. I never ate another one.
Then Boris Yeltsin looked at Amalfitano with curiosity, as if it were Amalfitano who had invaded his dream, not the other way around. And he said, "Listen carefully to what I have to say, comrade. I'm going to explain what the third leg of the human table is. I'm going to tell you, and then leave me alone. Life is demand and supply, or supply and demand. That's what it all boils down to, but that's no way to live. A third leg is needed to keep the table from collapsing into the garbage pit of history, which in turn is permanently collapsing into the garbage pit of the void. So take note. This is the equation. Supply plus demand plus magic. And what is magic? Magic is epic, and it's also sex, and Dionysian mists and play."
One year, Mets are in the playoff hunt late in the season. They're getting hot. We happen to have brought Drake's fruit pies for after the sandwiches. It's not a great game. Mets are losing. About the 6th or 7th inning, we eat the fruit pies. Mets start to come back. Mets win. Next game, same thing. Mets are down. We eat the fruit pies. Mets come back. Win. We bring fruit pies to every game now. Wait until it looks like they need it. Do our part for the team. The Mets make the playoffs. We get tickets to as many games as we can. By the NLCS, I can't stand the damn fruit pies. But I'm stuck buying them, stuck eating them. What am I going to do, let the Mets lose? They make it to the World Series. This game, we're sitting with a bunch of other guys. We bring fruit pies for all of them. Mets are down late, but it's close. We hand out the fruit pies, explain the deal, choose the moment. They don't eat the fruit pies. Look, I get it more than anyone, especially by then. But you can't play around with this kind of thing. The Mets lost the game, lost the series. I never ate another one.
And we get there, or I get there, and I don't remember much about that, but there's a kind of like hanging out, get to know each other kind of thing. There's going to be a movie. It's actually, I think, a couple of movies. The something film festival, but it was like, it was like a 1981 film festival, and those films were, festival's not even the right word, but it was like 4 or 5 movies put together, And at the end of the last movie, they had a picture of the impresario, and he just looked so slimy. He had this like super thin pencil mustache with like waxed, like a dastardly guy, and maybe a beret. He just looked like a guy who put things together, didn't really do anything himself, but wanted to have some power in a scene.
You see, I keep thinking that what we need is a new language. A language of the heart. Languages in the Polish forest where language wasn't needed. Some kind of language between people that is a new kind of poetry. That's the poetry of the dancing bee that tells us where the honey is. And I think that in order to create that language, you're going to have to learn how you can go through a looking glass into another kind of perception where you have that sense of being united to all things. And suddenly, you understand everything.
So somewhere I meet these two older women, and I'm primarily hanging out with them. That one of the women was kind of a little batty in a sweet way. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. Her hair is very light, maybe blonde, maybe mostly gray. I'm associating another person with her, but I can't think who. A son or a daughter, a husband, I don't know. Because I feel like there were four of us. And then there's this other woman who's dark hair, curly, like her hair is like up. I can picture it. I'm not able to describe it well. It was short. Tight curls. Maybe I'm putting those curls in there. She's attractive, and like very together.
I use the term baddie, which I do without hesitation, even knowing as I do so that it's kind of an old-fashioned word, or maybe a word that describes an old-fashioned kind of person, or maybe not old-fashioned as much as out of date. But either way, I interpret it as a pattern of behavior or a collection of mannerisms arranged into something like a personality, meaning that, without declaring whether or not the person I would describe as baddie possesses a more authentic, however much I dislike that word, or more profound personality, when I use the word, I'm kind of tacitly admitting I've decided I'm not going to go through the effort of trying to figure out whether there's anything more there. Because, let's admit it, I've decided that whatever is there isn't worth expending the effort to plumb. Which I see the, if not cruelty there, then dismissiveness of it. And this is a challenge, because of course I know I shouldn't be dismissing anybody, But it's not like I, or anyone, can truly get to know everyone we come in contact with. We'd never get anything done, except getting to know those people, which now that I air it, doesn't sound like the ironclad defense it did when it was a half-formed thought floating around in my pre-verbal consciousness. I mean, maybe that's a perfectly valid thing to do with a life, to just try your best to truly engage with everybody you'd otherwise superficially engage with as you go through your day-to-day. But I know I'm not going to do that, and it's just going to drop away and join the long list of the many lives I could have lived. And who's to say how many of those unlived lives would have been more fulfilling than the one I'm living? Certainly not me, not with how I'm feeling about this one. But I could try to defend the not bothering to get to know, in the case of this baddie person I might theoretically come across, by saying that I'm probably doing what they want, evidenced by the fact that they adopt the mannerisms that come together to form the baddie personality type, which is a type that screams out, at least to me, don't take me seriously, I'm barely here. And yeah, I see that it's probably a defense, camouflage rather than quills or spines, but still, that it's a way to keep serious and potentially dangerous attention from landing on oneself. And I also see that baddie is a word I have a hard time imagining using to describe a man. So that brings in misogyny, both my own and that of the culture in general, that this baddie person is perhaps appropriately responding to, which is a real issue. But on the other hand, even if I know that it's a defense, and even if I can trace this defense back to the trauma or traumas that triggered it, and I can see how the trauma is the result of the sexism endemic to our society, I'm pretty convinced by this point in my life that it's not my place to battle through these defenses and force my attention on someone who's worked so hard to create a personality that will keep just that from happening. Which leads me right back to dismissal, which, at least in this theoretical unspooling, maybe the best way to describe that is as the wrong disposition behind a right enough action. The Ibsen and these films declare that our lives are poems, their actions and words the content of a dream, working on webs of significance we cannot or will not survey, but merely spin further. In everyday life, the poems often seem composed by demons who curse us, wish us ill. In art, by an angel who wishes us well and blesses us.
And before the movies start, there's some kind of, like as I think I said this, there's some kind of ritual aspect to what they do. And it's like, this is like little rules that they've put together, whoever these people are. I have little flashes of some of the other people, and there were plenty of other people. But none of them yet are making much of an impression. Someone will later. I got to watch the movies in the dream, at least 2. I don't remember much of them, but they were like European from the 70s, Fellini-esque or whatever. And I think one of them was kind of silly, I thought. Oh, the ritual. There's some ritual before the movie that seems to involve some kind of a drug. But it's very vague. Both in what actually happened and also like what's supposed to happen. The ritual they came up with before the movie. There's something.
These little rules they've put together, whoever these people are, these people living in my psyche, embodied in my dream, what rules have they created to order their gathering? It's almost quaint, a suburban European movie aficionado's Robert's Rules of Order. But it's a ritual, the dream tells me. It involves some kind of drug. Ritual, the word, is a trap door. It appears when there are hidden levels. I try to move past the word and fall through the floor. I need to know the ritual. But the dream is very vague, both in what actually happened and what's supposed to happen. Do dreams have answers? My guess, probably. But what are the questions? In what language are they asked? In what language could they be answered? This word I keep tripping on, ritual, it feels like an answer, or a sign that points to an answer, though I don't know the question. Maybe if I knew the ritual. But the dream won't yield up to me these little rules they put together, whoever these people are. These little rules, that's obfuscation. The dream pretends this is no big deal. But it is, we'll see. They detail a sacrifice, and sacrifice is always a big deal. So how is this sacrifice related to my life? Does the dream describe a sacrifice already made? Does it prescribe sacrifice as a cure? Is it a promise, a warning? I turn to the dream to tell me, but it is very vague, both in what actually happened and what's supposed to happen. My interest in dreams was motivated by my interest in dream feelings. You're in a house the waking you has never been in. The dreaming you knows deep in its soul that it is home. In your dream, you're with someone the waking you has never seen before. In your dream, you've always loved them. The feeling comes with the image. No, the feeling precedes the image, seems to have always existed, awaiting an image to attach to. great writers can do something like this. I wanted to know how to do it myself in my writing, and I suspected there existed, and hoped to find, to replicate it, some little rules they put together, whoever these people are. I have stories that started as dreams. I have technique I learned from dreams. These are much more concrete than any answers I've learned from dreams, though Leonard Cohen did tell me once that it was all a spiritual struggle, and that's been helpful. I pay attention to my dreams when I can, when they let me, but what I'm supposed to do with them is still very vague, both in what actually happens and what's supposed to happen. It seems in dreams the object of the quest is always in the next room, just beyond the sensible, the seeable, or the touchable, where only intuition can detect it. Awake, the answers dreams carry are always just beyond the rational, the concludable, immune to the rules of logic, obeying some other set of rules. But these little rules they've put together, whoever these people are, they're very vague, both in what actually happens and what's supposed to happen. Each morning we repeat our Western history, slaying our brother, the dream, by killing its images with interpretive concepts that explain the dream to the ego. Ego, over black coffee, a ritual of sympathetic magic, chases the shadows of the night and reinforces his dominion.
Then the movie. During the movie, I'm really hanging out with these women. And the not the baddie one, the other one, the darker one. She says something like, I don't know, she says something like, that gets me to understand she thinks I'm flirting with her. Or she thinks I think she's flirting with me. And I say, oh no, and I feel like I embarrass her. But I hadn't been thinking that at all. I just needed someone to be with. These two ladies were nice. And I can tell she's a little, I don't know what, disturbed by by how quickly I said I wasn't interested, or that she was wrong, whatever. But then it turns out she wasn't wrong, and I only realized after that, oh, I am really interested in her. And there seemed to be though we're still in the house, there seems to be definitely a full-sized movie theater inside the house. But even maybe even fancier with couchy kind of seats, and maybe even some tables where you could sit with people. And I remember some moving around between movies or even during movies. And now we can't talk for whatever, maybe the movie started. And I kind of squeeze her hand, and I'm trying to communicate to her that she wasn't wrong. I am attracted to her, and I'd like to spend more time with her.
How much simpler it was falling in love when I was younger, before that overwhelming sense of being swept away became associated with the danger that might follow. And I don't think danger is too strong a word, and I'm not talking about heartbreak, which I would personally describe as painful rather than dangerous. When it felt like the only decision required was whether to let gravity take its course and fall in love, or resist gravity and probably fall in love anyway, but only with additional complications caused by the initial hesitancy.
Then the movie ends, and after the movie there's another ritual, and it involves a sacrifice. And someone is randomly the god who gets sacrificed, and someone is randomly the torturer, maybe, or something like that. And it's meant to be a symbolic thing. So this guy, who I know from before the movie, but I can't remember why, and he's taken it too far. And I know he's gonna, and I'm hoping everyone else is gonna stop him. But he's got this like drug and he's like putting it together. And he's gonna make her take it and he's gonna take it. It's the woman. I realize I don't know her name. And I asked the baddie woman, who misunderstands what I'm trying to say. I said something like, I don't even know the name of the woman, and she immediately interrupts and gives me her name, which I don't remember. And I try to get the other woman's name. I never see her again or I never talk to her again after the movie, I don't think. I kind of see her and I get a sad look, and I give her a sad look. And I'm just trying to wait around for the God sacrifice thing to end.
Love at first sight. And the first sight is the supreme consummation for romantics. Is an intuition bred by habit of the person who can do us harm.
At least in dreams I meet people. Here where I eat and sleep, write and work, life is free of that novelty. Remember the pleasure of the casual greeting, the unexpected encounter with an acquaintance, a handshake, a hug, the freedom of easy familiarity? How about a crowd? The press of a neighbor, warmth among strangers, the hum of half-heard conversations, instead of this enforced distance which slips so quickly from the physical to the social, the cautious to the suspicious.
The feelings that hurt most, the emotions that sting most, are those that are absurd. The longing for impossible things precisely because they are impossible. Nostalgia for whatever was, the desire for what could have been. Regret over not being someone else. Dissatisfaction with the world's existence. All these half-tones of the soul's consciousness create in us a painful landscape, an eternal sunset of what we are.
To go to a party, and there, amid the friends and acquaintances and strangers, to find that one person, the one who you always know where they're standing, who they're talking to, the one who, even if only for this night and only for you, glows in technicolor, is ruby-slippered Dorothy in Dust Bowl, Kansas. And then find yourself talking to them, pretending you have attention left over for other people, the ones in black and white. To be totally committed to that conversation, whatever it leads to, no matter that later on you'll finally come up with the perfect comeback, or regret you said that thing, or realize what that touch on your arm meant. In those moments, for that stretch of time, you're not alone. You're not alone because you're not quite aware you exist. Here in COVID time, I'm always aware I exist, and it's exhausting. Because there's a screen exhibiting me to myself, along with the others. Because of my body's vulnerability to this disease that passes invisibly through the air. That I exist right now, and now, and now, is always there, occupying the front of my mind, pressing down on me.
There's a lot of, then there's like the addition of like teenagers or college age kids, either at the house or in the neighborhood, because the neighborhood's a mess. The kids are a mess, and I think the drugs are involved with the kid. Sorry, the drug is involved with the kids somehow. So maybe this person who got the role of the torturer, sacrificer, was younger. He definitely was younger. I don't know if he was that young. But like, at a certain point I kind of like came out and become the camera of the dream or whatever. It's not me. It's just like I'm watching the screen. So there's beer bottles and even like people sleeping in bushes all over the neighborhood. It's really like bacchanalia. Probably an appropriate word. And then I get a flash forward, flashback, or flash forward of the drug he puts together is too much. And the two of them kind of have like psychotic breaks. This woman I realized too late I was interested in and never got to tell her. And it's really sad.
The kid can't know he's going too far, right? The kid, the torturer, suddenly there with all the arrogance youth owns, thinking these old folks are too cautious, need to be shaken up. Mixing the drug, determining the dose. Foolishly granted sovereignty over the conduct of this adult right, which is something beyond his capacity yet to understand, much less administer safely. But for him, safety is hardly the question. How easy it is to put myself in that place, summon up my former self when that arrogance was mine. I remember that need for danger, to put myself to the test against it, and remember how often, unable to find it readily at hand, I created the danger myself, as if it weren't there inside me all along.
While they circle the city's outskirts in a long, winding procession, Ares gathers a lightning bolts scattered fires and consigns them to earth with gloomy mutterings, consecrating the sight. Then he leaps to the sacred altar a choice bull with heavy dewlaps. When he tried to pour wine and with knife poised to sprinkle salt meal on its pole, the victim again and again resisted the doomed sacrifice. Attendants in belted robes bore down on its dangerous horns. Its knees buckled, and the bull offered its defeated throat. No ordinary blood gushed from its gaping wound, but in place of crimson gore, a spew of disgusting slime. Aghast at the ritual's hideous significance, Aaron's blanch, and frantically seeking the god's anger, seized the entrails.
Maybe he's waiting for somebody to stop him, to tell him that's not how we do things. I recognize this pose, the rebel who wants to be reined in, who wants credit for his transgression without responsibility for the repercussions. But the rules of the ritual forbid it. They will not protect him from himself, pull him back from the brink. He goes too far. The torturer and the god victim both suffer psychotic breaks. Here the tragic love story of the dream hero ends. But where will the torturer's story lead?
Their very color alarmed the seer. Grayish. The organs were mottled with stinking blotches, crusted with loathsome scabs, speckled with flecks of blood, pied with numerous bruises. He spied the liver slicked with pus, found ominous streaks on its hostile lobe. One lung's inflatable sac had collapsed, the merest membrane partitioned the vital organs. The heart lay hidden, but viscera pumped putrefaction through the widening slits, and the caul disclosed its hiding place. And a horror's diviners know bodes infallible evil. Look, he sees, protruding from one lobe of the liver, the bulge of a second. One side sickly and flaccid droops, the other glistens, shaking its veins with rapid, relentless throbbing.
Soon the neighborhood will be a mess, the Hollywood version of the morning after a college party. Teens and college-age kids sleeping in bushes among their empty beer bottles. Also there, outside, awaiting their wives, the real men, the ones man enough to know the films inside, they'll be too European for their tastes. What is the psychotic break signal for the torturer? He's linked to the teenagers and college-age kids. Is his break what summoned them? Or did he rise up out of their mess to separate himself? Which world will be his? Inside the house, with their oblique flirting, their rules and decorum? Or outside, with the men and drunken adolescents? Will he be able to slip back and forth across the border? For the dream hero's love story, there will be no happy resolution. But what of the torturer? Is this the end of his story or the beginning? Will he be lost in the break or initiated into the mystery?
Once he perceived the imminence of widespread devastation, he cried, O gods above, it is scarcely meet or right for me to reveal to the people all that you intend. For with this, my offering, I have not won your goodwill, mighty Jupiter.
Gods of the world below have invaded the slaughter bull's chest.
I must not say what I dread, but worse will come than my fear.
There are other images. I have an image of like the men of men outside who like either were part of the movie watching at the beginning or knew not to be, that it was going to be too foreign, too European, and they're like gathering together to pick up their wives. And one guy was laying on the driveway in a weird way. Now that I think about it, in like a Jesus on the cross kind of way, if I'm remembering right. I remember this feeling of like the kid who was the sacrificer or torturer. It was just bad luck, you know, like he has the right to do it. It's part of the ritual, it's part of the ceremony. And no one does anything that extreme because they're all adults and they know not to do that. But he's a kid. And so he goes too far and everyone's like just hoping. But they kind of can't stop him by the rules of their ceremony. And it's sad. There's this sad, I have this image of seeing her. I don't know her name. It's this resignation on her face, and I'm just kind of hoping I'll get to talk to her. Maybe drive her home. But like, she was in the kind of shape where she would need to go to the hospital.